Here's how I used Meshy to make a character from my video game. So we started by generating an image in Meshy. I used the prompt to image feature that they have in here. So you can actually use this to generate yourself an image, a reference image for the start. Or you could just skip right over it and try to do text to 3D. But I prefer this method just because it kind of makes it a little bit more final looking rather than just a mess. But I used it to generate a black set of armor with no head and orange highlights. That's all I told it to do. And I ended up with this photo here that I ended up modifying with Affinity. I just cleaned it up and made sure it was good for Meshy to have as easy a time as possible for reading it. And the result is right here. This is, I feel like, very, very good results. And sometimes you get some pretty bad ones. If you have the paid version of Meshy, you can do retries. You get 4 of them per model. It's like 10, I think, to generate the model. Total 20 if you do the image and the model itself. I think I started with like 19,000, or not 19,000, 1,900, I mean. And you can see that I've barely used them, and I've made a lot of different characters over here, a lot of images. But there's some small things here and there that we do need to clean up with this. The other big thing is that when you do this, it's going to generate a model that has somewhere around 30,000 faces on it. Actually, I think sometimes it's even higher than that. But you can adjust this down to something a little bit more usable for a video game like this, where it's not going to take up as much, um, of the power of the computer to run. You're not going to fry your potato. And it's better practice when it comes to video games to do something like this. Now, of course, there are some issues with the topology here, but we're generating a 3D model, and I think this is probably the best we're going to get for now until they improve upon this. And I think it's pretty good. Comes out pretty good. If you want to do like a Nathan Drake style character, really realistic, then I guess this could be okay for you. But we want to drop it down to this as best as possible. So the way we can do this is you can retexture things, add textures. We can hit remesh, and remesh allows you to change the poly counts. Now, you can do quads or triangles. You can do 3K, 10K, 30K, 100K, custom. I actually use adaptive and adaptive quads because I just like the way they look. It looks better, it's more pleasing, and I feel like it's the proper way to do things. You can do low, medium, high, or ultra. Honestly, I just do low. You can do medium. I think medium ends up being like around, I think 30 something. Does this say? No. Does this say? I think 30 ends up being like a good amount as well. But I usually just go low, and you can see here the results are pretty good despite, having way less faces. There's only small little things you'll notice here and there, and honestly, you're not going to notice those if your character is zoomed out quite a bit. It also helps that I bring this into Blender and I actually clean up a lot of the material as well. Like these little weird triangles that are on there, I actually use the blur tool to get rid of those. So we'll switch over and I'll show you what that looks like. Alright, so here you can see the character. I didn't clean up this little like crotch region. I probably could still do that too. I just haven't bothered with it because, like, again, as I said before, you're not going to see that when you're backed out this far. It's just not necessary. Maybe in the cinematics you might see it a little bit, but there's going to be a lot of lighting in the game as well, so you're not going to see it probably. You'll also see that it in fact does have a nice set of quads on it. It's just very well structured, I think, in comparison to what it started with. And then I cleaned up the little triangles by going into the texture paint mode and just using the smear tool, and I zoom in and I turn the strength to full, and then I would just kind of, we'll use something else that's there. So for example, this, I'll just blur that, smear, 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 and then when I'm done smearing, if it looks kind of rough, like, see, this side doesn't look so bad, but the other side does, bring it down to about 40 with the Shift F, and we just blend it in. And same thing with this side. And that looks a little bit better than it did. So then we went back over to Meshy, and I used it to generate a pumpkin. And you can see here, there's the pumpkin. I used it to generate. This one was done without any... no, actually I did use an image on this one too. I did the same thing. Generated an image, used the image to generate this model. Then I used it to generate the texture based off of the image, which is the same thing I did up here. Topology, again, is a little bit extreme, so I did it over to a adaptive setup. Less faces, which came out really nice. You can actually see it in different shades up here too. So that gives you a little idea of how it can look. And then we brought that back over into Blender, and we put that on the character. And now you're seeing this little face in there, and you're probably wondering how I did that. Well, I actually just went into the model, and I highlighted, say, the bottom half of it. Let me hide the body. I selected down here, and I did the Control Plus. I did a better selection than that. And I just selected all the way up until I got to about somewhere up here in the top. Like, for example, like that. And then I just duplicated it and then shrunk it down to make the inside. And after I did that, go back out of tab mode, bring that back. I used this thing right here. I made a silly little face out of just a couple squares. This is what it started as. And then I used a Boolean modifier to cut it straight out of my pumpkin. And the cool thing about this is I can use this to make several different heads. So the players have different heads for the game to choose from. You can also use the shape keys. If you do the head or the eyes and the mouth and everything a certain way, you can even make it so this thing can talk. And it's pretty great. But it ends up making it into the character I was trying to go for, which is the Pumpkinite Jack. And then if you come over to Blender, no, not Blender, Unity, we'll make sure the music gets turned off. There we go, the last lantern. And you can see the character in all his glory. Now, of course, there's no lights that are brought over from Meshy or obviously Blender, but I just added it into my Unity game, and this is what he normally looks like, just dropped right in from Meshy. Now that's really good for a character that I've done no work on, and it was all generated just from Meshy with a little bit of work in Blender. It's very impressive. And then you can just do fine-tuning with materials inside of Unity, and using lighting and post-processing, you end up with this. So if you want to do this yourself, we can go up here. We'll go earn free gifts. Invite now. I'm going to put this link into the YouTube description for the video. And if you want to do all this yourself, you can actually go ahead and select that link, and you can actually get a month free for both you and I. And you'll be able to do all the same things that I just did. There's images to 3D, text to 3D. They just started with a new 3D image and image videos. That was pretty cool. I did a bunch of dinosaur videos for my kid. AI texturing. There's a lot of different things you can do in this. And honestly, I've barely even scratched the surface myself. You can see I made a bunch of random little characters, chibi characters, which I thought was pretty cool. Just to help with inspiration. Because I actually make games and little hobby games, and I actually do a lot of the work myself. But one of the things I need is I need the inspiration. I need something as a reference to help me guide how I want my character to look. And so I actually will use images I'll find online, and I will just kind of base my models off of that concept. Like I might use the same kind of style of hair to do on my characters, but I might not make them chibi looking. I might make them looking a little bit more anime style. But you can see all the different little things that I've done here over the course of my my time using this. Again, reference images for characters. So yeah, that's about it, guys. If you like the video, thumbs up it, subscribe, and use the link. There's only going to be 3 of them in there, so get them while they're there. See you next time.